Hey, y'all. So happy Tuesday. All right, so it's Funny Nicole here, the Contact Center Whisperer, and I wanted to talk about this problem that organizations think that they have. So you do not have a service level problem. You have a educating on supply and demand problem. Many times organizations are the number one culprit to hitting service level, okay, is availability, right? Like if you want to serve, just let's break this down to brass tacks, right? If you want to serve your customer at a certain level, means that you need to have resources available to serve those customers at a certain level. And if you don't have the resources available to serve those customers at a certain level, then you don't make service level. And so the culprit to hitting your service level goals is availability, having people available or having the resources. If we're talking about AI, right? If you're integrating artificial intelligence into your customer experience strategy, then your problem is not necessarily service level. Your problem is understanding availability and understanding supply and demand. So if I have a demand of X percent, right? So say, for example, you say in your organization, I have a demand of 500 calls are going to come in today. Then I need to supply the resources, whether that is people to handle those 500 calls, emails, chats, back office tasks. Then the problem that organizations have is that they're not tackling the supply and demand conversation, and they don't understand it. They're not educating on it. They're not, because no employee wakes up. I was having a conversation with someone earlier and I was saying, no employee, no one wakes up and says, oh, this is going to be the day that I suck today. Right. Or this is going to be the day that I get fired. No one wakes up, or typically no one wakes up. Right. Typically no one wakes up and says this. So this means that if we are not hitting our service level goals, then we have an availability challenge. And if we have an availability challenge, then we need to start making sure we are available, which means resources, which means we have to educate our employees. We have to educate our team members on what does that look like. Hey guys, we have this kind of demand, which means without demand, right? We don't need a supply. So if we have this demand, that is a great thing. If we have this demand for our business, right, and that is producing these calls, that are producing these chats, that's producing these emails, then you are the supply to that equation. Many times people just simply don't understand they just understand the part that they play. But if we started to educate, I think this is a bigger conversation. I was talking to someone about this and I was saying, hey, it's a bigger conversation that we need to start having. Most people just understand the task or the role that they do inside of their organizations, their contributions, but they don't understand how that contributes on a much higher scale to the overall organization. And therein lies your problem. Now, am I saying that the employee has to understand every single thing? Absolutely not. But they need to definitely understand how their role contributes to the larger equation. Because when they understand how their role contributes to the larger the equation, then they have skin in the game. They have buy-in. They understand, okay, because my role impacts this particular thing, this is how I contribute to the organization making money, saving money, operating more efficiently, effectively, all the different things. And so your real challenge really isn't service level, even though that's what we are. That's our thing. That's our North Star that organizations, they are like, especially in the CX industry, we're like, oh yeah, I need to do, hit this service level goal. And it's like, what you really should be focusing on is, how do I ensure that, one, this is the right goal? Because sometimes these organizations, y'all be having these goals and I'd be like, you can't even afford that goal, first of all. But I digress. Okay, I digress. Okay, because the service level costs you a number, right? So it's just math. It's doing your math and understanding, one, can I afford to hit this actual goal? Can I afford to hit a 90% service level? Can I afford to answer 90% of my calls in 30 seconds or 20 seconds or 45 seconds? That's a math equation. So the first thing, your first question is, can I afford that goal? Okay. Before you just start setting random goals, is that even the right goal? Who said that I should have to, who said I should be hitting this goal? I think that is the question that we should be asking inside of organizations, and then understanding the costs associated with that, so that we can start to articulate that better to our teams, our operational staff, and our workforce people who are saying, hey, if you want to hit 80% of your calls, if you want to answer 80% of your calls within 30 seconds or less, this is the cost that's associated with that. And by the way, this is the amount of people or resources that you're going to need to hit that goal. So this is a supply and demand conversation. Okay. So workforce management people, and I'm guilty, right? We have a habit of saying, if you ask us what we do, we say, oh, workforce management is about having the right people in the right place at the right time with the right skills so we can service the customers. The problem with saying that is people be like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And at the core of what we're trying to address really is supply and demand. Hey, this business produces a demand of X, right? Whether that's calls, chats, emails, back office tasks, cars, perfume bottles, whatever the demand is, right? Because we can even take this outside of the context of simple customer service departments, right? And look at this more holistically around customer experience. My business produces a demand for this. Now, the next part of that equation is understanding, okay, so what does the supply look like? How do I supply that demand? And what is the cost to supplying that demand? So if my business produces a demand for 500 calls for the day, what is the cost to supply that from a resource perspective? And that's whether you have actual people answering those calls, or whether you have a hybrid of people answering calls and AI, right? Handling part of the interaction. And so what this boils down to when we're talking about service levels or whatever your business metric is, what this really boils down to is just basic business around supply and demand. In this concept, I think we really need to start educating on this. Whether you are, a frontline employee, I think businesses and organizations really have to start figuring out innovative ways and simple ways to educate on these types of things, because whether you are a frontline employee where you're very customer facing and you're in the customer service department and you're working with customers, those employees need to understand, okay, my role impacts the business at this scale. Yes, I'm doing this task, but my role impacts the organization at this scale. Now I have a different perspective. See, it's all about perspective. I can view this differently now. And so again, my soapbox, my perspective on this is that many times when I'm talking to organizations and they're like, we're not hitting our service level goal, or, we're trying to create a better employee experience or a better customer experience, whatever the thing is, right? And we start to drill all the way down, right? A lot of times we just aren't asking enough questions. We start to drill all the way down into, okay, at the core of what we're trying to do, why are we trying to do what we're trying to do? What does the customer journey look like? What does demand look like? What does it look like to supply that demand? What is the cost associated with that? What are some innovative ways that we can meet that demand, whether that is leveraging technology, creating better processes? All of those different things are things that we should be asking. But bottom line, the very bottom line boils down to supply and demand. What is demand on your business, and how do you supply that demand? So, okay, that's my soapbox for today. I wanted to chat about that with you all. I want to hear your thoughts though. When you think about this in the context of your organization, I want to know, have you thought about your business in the realm of supply and demand, regardless of what it is, right? Whether you are on the sales team and you're trying to hit a certain sales number. Hey, I need to generate this amount of leads, make this amount of phone calls so that it converts to this, right? I need to produce this kind of demand prospects so that it turns into this, so it turns into this. It doesn't matter if you are on the customer service side of this, right? Like, hey, our business produces this amount of customer service calls, which means I need to supply this amount of people or resources to handle those customer service calls. Whether you are in manufacturing, hey, we produce cars. And so demand for our business means we have to produce, 100 cars a day. How many people, or machines does it take to supply that demand? This is, again, we're having a supply and demand conversation. And at the core of what workforce management is, that's what workforce management is. It is about understanding the business's demand and hitting that demand, understanding what the supply needs to look like and being able to sustain that. Can we introduce sustainability into this model so that we can consistently supply this amount of cars every day, or hit this, handle this amount of workload, right? 500 calls, 500 chats, back office, whatever the thing is. Can we consistently do that at a high level? Now we're introducing the concept of sustainability, right? How do we sustain at that level of performance, right? So anyway, I figured that would, I was talking to someone having this conversation. I was like, oh, let me share this with this audience. I think it might be helpful. So if that was helpful, great. Let me know. And if there's something else that you want to talk about, you already know what to do. Leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. All right. Until next time, y'all go be great and let's make impact. See y'all soon. Bye.